Imagine waking up tomorrow and finding out that Apple has gone bankrupt. Sounds impossible, right? Now here's the crazy part. 20 years ago, that's exactly how people felt about Nokia. At one point, Nokia wasn't just the biggest phone company on Earth, it controlled almost half of the entire mobile phone market. Its iconic ringtone echoed in every country. Its phones were so reliable that people joked they would survive a war. But in less than 5 years, this global giant lost almost everything. Billions of dollars disappeared. Its stock collapsed. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. And the company that once laughed at its competitors was forced to sell its entire phone business just to survive. So, how did the most powerful company in mobile history destroy itself? Was it because Apple invented a better phone? Or was there a much bigger mistake happening behind closed doors that almost nobody noticed until it was too late? Because the real reason Nokia collapsed has nothing to do with technology, and once you hear it, you'll never look at successful companies the same way again. The king. Nobody could challenge to understand Nokia's fall. We first need to understand just how unstoppable it really was. By the early 2000s, Nokia wasn't winning the phone industry. It was the phone industry. Nearly 1 out of every 2 mobile phones sold on Earth carried the Nokia logo. The company had factories across the world, a supply chain competitors couldn't match, and enough cash to outspend almost everyone else. Models like the Nokia 3310 became legends. People dropped them from rooftops, ran them over with cars. Some even joked they could stop bullets, and somehow, the phone still worked. Customers trusted Nokia more than any other electronics brand. Investors loved it. Governments respected it. Employees believed they worked for the safest company in Europe. It looked impossible to beat, but hidden inside this empire, a dangerous problem had already started growing. Not outside the company, inside it. The mistake nobody took seriously. In January 2007, a man wearing a black turtleneck walked onto a stage in California. His name was Steve Jobs, and in his hand was a device that looked completely different from every phone on the market. The first iPhone. Most companies immediately realized the industry had changed forever, but Nokia didn't. Executives reportedly believed the iPhone would remain a niche luxury product. After all, and it was expensive. It didn't even have a physical keyboard. Its battery couldn't be removed. On paper, it looked full of compromises. Nokia had seen dozens of competitors fail before. Why would this one be any different? That confidence would become one of the most expensive mistakes in business history because Apple wasn't trying to build a better phone. It was building something much bigger, a computer that happened to fit inside your pocket, and Nokia completely underestimated what that meant, winning the wrong game. Here's where the story becomes fascinating. Nokia engineers weren't untalented. In fact, many insiders later revealed that Nokia had already built touchscreen prototypes years before Apple. Think about that. The company had the technology, the talent, the money, the factories, and the global distribution network. So why didn't it win? Because inside Nokia, different teams fought each other. Managers argued over priorities. Projects moved painfully slowly. Instead of asking, how do we build the future? People were asking, how do we protect what already makes us money? Every successful product made executives even more afraid to change. Ironically, the company's greatest strength had become its biggest weakness. And then, another competitor quietly entered the game. Unlike Apple, this company wasn't trying to sell phones. It wanted something far more valuable, the software inside them. And Nokia completely failed to see the trap. The trap was never the phone. While Nokia was busy improving hardware, Google was quietly changing the rules of the game. Instead of building its own phone, Google created Android. And unlike Apple's closed ecosystem, Android was free. Any manufacturer could use it. Samsung adopted Android. HTC adopted Android. Motorola adopted Android. Within just a few years, an entire army of smartphone companies was improving the same operating system together. Meanwhile, Nokia was still betting on Symbian, an operating system that had been designed for a different era. Developers hated building apps for it. Users found it slow and outdated, and every month, the gap between Nokia and its competitors grew wider. This wasn't just a technology problem anymore, it was an ecosystem problem. Customers weren't buying phones anymore, they were buying apps, services, and experiences. And Nokia had fallen behind on all three. The memo that shocked the company. By 2010, the numbers were impossible to ignore. Market share was shrinking, profits were falling, and internally, employees knew something had gone terribly wrong. Then came one of the most famous internal documents in business history. New CEO Stephen Alab sent a company-wide message that later became known as the Burning Platform Memo. He compared Nokia to a man standing on a burning oil platform. Stay where you are, and you'll die. jump into freezing water, and you might survive. It was brutally honest. For the first time, Nokia publicly admitted it was losing. The memo shocked employees around the world. But admitting the problem didn't automatically create the solution, because the next decision would define Nokia's future, the gamble that failed. Instead of adopting Android, Nokia made a bold bet. It partnered with Microsoft. The idea sounded logical. Microsoft had money, a global brand, and Windows Phone. Together, they believed they could challenge Apple and Android. But consumers weren't convinced. Developers didn't want to build apps for a platform with a tiny user base. Without apps, customers stayed away. Without customers, developers stayed away. It became a vicious cycle. By the time Nokia realized the partnership wasn't working, it was already too late. Samsung had become the face of Android. Apple dominated the premium market. And Nokia, the company that once owned almost half of the world's phone market, was rapidly disappearing from it. Then came the moment almost nobody thought possible. In 2013, Microsoft agreed to buy Nokia's mobile phone business for around $7.2 billion. For many people, it felt like the end of an era. The company that had once been worth well over $150 billion had been forced to sell the very business that made it famous. Factories closed, thousands of employees lost their jobs. Entire communities in Finland felt the impact. The king of mobile phones had officially surrendered. Ironically, even Microsoft couldn't turn the business around. Just a few years later, it wrote off billions of dollars on the acquisition. The partnership that was supposed to save Nokia ended up hurting both companies. The real reason. Nokia fell, people often say, Apple killed Nokia. But that's not what really happened. Apple exposed the future. Google accelerated it. But Nokia made the decisions that left it behind. It underestimated software. It protected old profits instead of building new ones. It moved too slowly while the market moved faster than ever before. And perhaps the biggest lesson of all, success can quietly become a trap, because when you're winning, it's incredibly difficult to believe the rules of the game are changing. History is filled with companies that thought they were too big to fail. Kodak, Blockbuster, BlackBerry, Nokia, different industries, the same mistake. They weren't destroyed because they lacked talent. They were destroyed because they reacted to the future too late. So the next time you see a company dominating its industry, ask yourself one question. Are they building the future or simply defending the past? Because sometimes the biggest threat to a market leader isn't the competition. It's the belief that they'll always stay on top. And if you think Nokia was the only billion-dollar company that ignored a massive shift in work culture, think again. Just a few years later, another global giant watched the future arrive, dismissed it, and paid an even bigger price. That's the story of WeWork. Click on that video next, because once you see what WeWork and Nokia had in common, you'll never look at successful companies the same way again.